Welcome back to Recap Buzz. Today we're covering one of the most important and emotionally devastating films of the 21st century, 12 Years a Slave from 2013. Based on the memoir of Solomon Northup, a free black man kidnapped and sold into slavery, this movie is not just about his personal suffering. It's about the system that enabled such cruelty, the resilience of those who endured it, and the legacy it left behind. We'll walk through Solomon's story, capturing the humanity, the despair, and the small sparks of hope. We begin in New York, 1841. Here we meet Solomon Northup, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. Solomon is not the stereotype we often see in slavery films. He's a man born free. Reputation as a talented musician brings him opportunities to perform at gatherings, giving his family a respectable life. At home, Solomon is a loving husband to and a proud father to his two children. Their dinners are warm, their laughter genuine. These early scenes are short but vital. They remind us that Solomon has something most enslaved people were denied: freedom from birth, a family he chose, and the ability to shape his own future. One afternoon, Solomon is approached by two well-dressed strangers, Brown and Hamilton. They claim to be entertainers, impressed by Solomon's violin playing. They as an equal, sharing food and drink. But everything. Solomon regains consciousness in a dark, damp cell. His fine clothes are gone. Heavy chains bind his wrists and ankles. He cries out, insisting he is a free man from New York, but his words fall on deaf ears. The men who greet him now are not entertainers, they are traitors. To them, Solomon is not Solomon anymore. He's Platt, a runaway slave with no papers to prove otherwise. This moment is terrifying not because of overt violence but because of how swiftly his freedom is erased. One night of trust, one poisoned drink, and everything is gone. Solomon is beaten with blows. In that instant, Solomon learns the first brutal lesson of his new reality. In this system, truth means nothing. Power means everything. Solomon is transported to Washington, where we meet Theophilus Freeman, a slave trader played with chilling confidence by Paul Giamatti. Freeman treats human beings like merchandise over prices. It's dehumanization in its rawest form. Among those on display is Eliza, a woman clutching her young son and daughter. Her pleas to keep her children are heartbreaking, but Freeman separates them without hesitation. Her screams and sobs are ignored, her children sold away like items at a market. Solomon watches in horror, realizing that in this place, family bonds mean nothing. A mother's love is powerless against the greed of men. Eventually, Solomon is sold to William Ford, a plantation owner in Louisiana. Compared to others, Ford is respect. Solomon proves his value quickly. Using his engineering knowledge, he designs a system to transport logs more efficiently. Ford praises him and even rewards him with a violin, an instrument that becomes both a reminder of who Solomon once was and a fragile piece of comfort in his new life. But this him, berates him, and eventually lashes out violently. In one confrontation, Solomon fights back to save his life. It's an act of survival, but also an act of rebellion. He considers his toes barely touching the ground. The men pull tight, eager to watch him suffocate. But just before death takes him, they are interrupted. The attack is halted, not out of compassion, but because killing a slave without the owner's consent is seen as destroying someone else's property. What follows is one of the film's most haunting visuals. Solomon left hanging, his toes digging into the mud, struggling to breathe, while life on the plantation continues around him. Children play, slaves go about their work, and no one dares to intervene. Hours pass before Ford himself cuts him down. Ford tries to shield Solomon afterward, but he knows he can't protect him forever. With reluctance, he makes a decision that changes everything. He sells Solomon to Edwin Epps, a man notorious for his cruelty. Epps, played by Michael Fassbender, is the embodiment of sadistic authority. He quotes the Bible to justify his brutality, twisting scripture into an excuse for domination. He boasts that it is his God-given right to discipline slaves. Life on Epps' plantation is far harsher than anything Solomon has endured. The work is relentless. Long hours in the blistering sun, picking cotton under the constant threat of punishment. The quotas are impossible, the whippings merciless. Here, we meet Patsy, portrayed by Lupita Nyong'o in her Oscar-winning role. Patsy is the best cotton picker on the plantation, capable of gathering extraordinary amounts in a single day. For this, she earns both attention and torment. Epps is obsessed with her. His twisted desire manifests in nightly assaults, while his wife, Mistress Epps, unleashes her jealousy in the form of cruel punishments. Patsy is trapped between a predator and a tormentor, her spirit crushed day by day. Through Solomon's eyes, we see Patsy's suffering not as a subplot, but as a reflection of slavery's darkest depths. Her story becomes as central to the narrative as Solomon's own. Despite the horrors, Solomon clings to survival. He keeps his mind sharp, observing, calculating. He never forgets who he truly is, even when forced to answer to the name Platt. At night, he carves crude pens from sticks and makes ink from berry juice, attempting to write letters to contacts in the North. He entrusts one to a white man who promises to help, but instead, the man betrays him, revealing Solomon's attempt to Epps. Even in silence, he doesn't give up. He hides his intelligence, enduring humiliation, waiting for the smallest chance to reclaim his freedom. Struggle, Patsy's story takes center stage. Her suffering reaches a breaking point. The abuse from Epps is relentless, and Mistress Epps' cruelty makes life unbearable. In one devastating moment, Patsy begs Solomon to help her end her own life. Her request is a heartbreaking sign of how deeply slavery destroys not just bodies but souls. Solomon refuses, unable to take her life, but the weight of her plea lingers. Later, a small act of humanity, Patsy asking for soap, leads to one of the most brutal punishments in the film. Mistress Epps accuses her of adultery. Torn between his own survival and his humanity, beating Patsy nearly. This scene is one of the most difficult to watch, not for spectacle, but because of the impossible choices it forces on both Solomon and Patsy. It illustrates how slavery corrupts not only those who wield power but also those forced into impossible situations. Years pass. Solomon endures, but the weight of time grows heavier. Then, a new figure enters the story. Samuel Bass, even challenging Epps to his face. His conscience refuses to stay silent, even when it puts him at risk. For Solomon, Bass is a lifeline. He listens when Solomon reveals his true identity. He hesitates, helping a slave escape